the PIA has changed the shape of business governance, and that has come to stay. And right now, businesses, stakeholders are looking to reprioritize. So this question goes to Mr. Okusami. What do you think are the changes that stakeholders should be on the lookout for? And how would you advise them to prioritize addressing these changes that the PIA has brought in?
Hi. Okay, sorry. It took a while. First of all, pardon me, 20 seconds. I just turned on my coffee machine, so that'll be the background. Um, Thank you. Thank you for the question. So I'd like to break down things into a couple of buckets, right? First, regulatory. We do have a situation where we have dual regulators, right? I hear a lot of people, for lack of a better description, complain about this. There is precedence for this in Canada, Malaysia, and Mexico, where you have a dual regulatory structure. As you know now, we have the upstream and the midstream and downstream. The issue, like we talked about with implementation, is the coordination between the regulators. We do see there's some friction happening, but we're also seeing an attempt to ease over that friction. So one of the primary concerns I am having from my clients over the last 3 years is dealing with this friction. Without getting too detailed, one of the things that we've had to deal with is what we call in the industry the segregation. The PIA requires a segregation of businesses between upstream, midstream, and downstream. And you do have a number of companies that have operations in all of them. And the idea of, simplistically, where do you put the scissors to cut between these sectors? Because you have to spin them all off into different companies. Okay, that's a major thing that is a concern that we're dealing with now. HSC obligations for me is one of the major things and the major improvements that one of my panelists has discussed, but I would like to dig in a little deeper. Let's talk from the host community. I think we already have moved where you have panelists who are chairing and secretaries of their host community development trust. Okay, we still have to get to the point where they're fully operational or fully funded, but I could tell you from an advisor's point of view that as far back as 2 years ago, my clients were already taking advice on host community trust funds, how to contribute to them, how to support them. And while from the host community perspective, we aren't quite there yet, but there is a seriousness from a number of my clients, both Nigerian and international, in supporting this in a proactive and actual way. Okay. One of the key things that we will need from the host community, because we often hear, well, the oil companies are not doing this, the oil companies are not doing that. Okay, we have to hold them accountable, but we also have to hold the host community trust accountable as well. How is the money being deployed? How is it being used? Because one of the concerns is, how is this money being managed? Is it going to do what is meant to be done? I think I always tell my lawyers here in the firm, no good deed goes unpunished. You work hard, you do well. What does that result in? Less work? No, you get more work done. So there's a responsibility on the IOCs and the indigenous companies like Oando. Sorry, Bambo, I'm putting you on the spot, but you're going to have to give the host community some money, give them a lot. But Bambo also has the right to ask these host communities, what have you done with the $5 million I gave you last year? I want to see it. Do you understand? That makes it easier for him to go back to his management and say, let's do more, right? We are seeing what we call the DNA, decommissioning and abandonment obligations. This is fairly public knowledge. Oando just completed the first deal in this round of divestments, right? I'm advising on a number of them, but Bambo could also tell you, again, not to put him on the spot, but I believe it helps in talking about these things practically. So he's the only company here. Don't worry, he and I are friends offline. But the DNA obligations for Oando to complete that deal and every other divestment that is going through now, you have to make a provision that goes into an account to be able to take care of the environmental change that has occurred due to oil exploration and production, right? There is an environmental remediation fund, which was not the case before the PIA, which is also being funded, which is used to manage the negative impact on the environment. So if you look from a host community and an environmental, which I, as a Nigerian, forget that most of my clients are international, the environmental impact of oil and gas production in Nigeria is significantly more adverse than you would find in other climes. The PIA is addressing that, and the companies are being held accountable for that. Yes, everyone is talking about divestment and acquisition, but no party that is divesting will be able to complete their deal without putting a significant amount of money aside in cash or a bank instrument that guarantees that at the end of cycle, we will be able to remediate, at least try significantly, the environmental damage that has been done due to these upstream activities. Another thing, just so I don't talk too long, is we're also seeing this from, and Bambo touched upon that, right? In 3 years, the NUPRC and the NDPMRA, I'll just call them the Commission for Upstream and the Authority for Midstream and Downstream, have issued a number of regulations, right? It is due to the implementation of the PIA, but also stakeholder feedback as well. Myself and colleagues in this firm, in other firms, companies like Oando, Total, Chevron, they're often stakeholder engagements with the regulators before they issue this. But more important, and let's be fair to the regulators. Sometimes they don't always get it 100% right. I tell people every jurisdiction you go to, from the US to Russia to Venezuela, there are always concerns with a law. It's not only Nigeria. One thing I do like under this current PIA regime is that if a regulation is issued, you go back to the regulator saying, hey, guys, have you thought about it this way? Or this is how we're seeing the practical impact of what you've issued as a guideline or regulation. They're open to listen. It doesn't mean they always agree with us, but we have seen a number of scenarios. I personally have seen on a number of transactions, or just even in advisory work, a willingness to listen and sometimes change things just to make the implementation more practical. So these are the things I'm seeing. I'll stop now and give way to my other panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okusami. Thank you so much. I think you have really touched on these issues, and it just emphasizes the mighty importance of this. The very fact that we're seeing companies being to say, for want of a better word, at the crossroads or between two extremes. I won't say the devil and the deep blue sea, but companies have to cater to regulators and regulations. Companies have to cater to community needs, and companies also have to ensure that they are sustainable and profitable for the long term. So they're having to deal with all of this, and then you have the PIA coming, and the PIA says we're changing the game and everything will be different. It won't be as business as usual anymore.